It's more than just riding, it's the whole experience, and that's what we want to create for people here.
I will always choose somebody with restaurant experience over anybody else because it teaches you so much about customer service.
You know, an IT guy or something like that, they don't know what certain terminology means, you know, in our world.
All right. Welcome back to the Mind the Growth podcast. I'm Eric, as you know, and we got Brent here today.
How's it going, guys?
Who are you, Brent?
Just a normal guy.
Yeah.
Just a hairstylist, grew up here in Arizona, moved out here when I was real young, and I've been doing hair for about 16 years now.
Oh, boy.
And I've owned my own salon for almost 5.
Okay. What were you doing before you owned your salon?
I was doing whatever everyone does when they get out of high school, and bartending and partying and going to college.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you worked for a different group before you opened your own salon?
Yeah, I worked for a few different salons, most of which I was just kind of renting a station in there, so I was always kind of running my own business just under someone else's roof.
Gotcha.
So I was always kind of, you know, forced to get my own clientele and build my books, you know.
So what was it out of college that you thought, I want to go into hair?
You know, I like to say that it found me.
Yeah.
Even in high school, I could tell people like what to do with their hair.
Yeah.
But I had no idea how it was done, especially when it came to hair color. So I had a friend of a friend that had known me like my whole life. It was my brother's buddy, and he had kind of started going to hair school, and we were all at dinner one night, and I was just kind of asking him like, hey, is there any money involved in that? Like, I was just super intrigued by it, and he kind of turned me on to the idea of it. And at the time I was going to school, I was a double major for business and secondary education. So my plan was to teach high school economics. And I just kind of had this epiphany one day that I was like, man, I'm going to be done with school in a year from now. I'll be making half of what I'm making now as a bartender, you know, at like 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of my wake-up call. And I went and checked out some hair schools. And even though I walked in and I had no idea what everyone was doing with foils on their hair and all that, I was super into it. And so I finished my fall semester, and then I started hair school in the spring and just kind of never looked back.
So what are some similarities with bartending and hairstyling? Because I imagine there's maybe a few.
Yeah, bartending, and even just like the service industry in general. I'd say one of the biggest things is just knowing how to multitask is a huge part. And then also, you know, just having the people skills and customer service skills and stuff like that. So I like to kind of joke around and say that I've never had a real job a day in my life. Because even before I bartended, I worked in a restaurant as a busboy and a host at 16 years old. So even when I hire employees, if it's always like kind of like if I have 2 candidates that I really like, if one has restaurant experience and the other doesn't, I almost always go with the one with restaurant experience because, again, the multitasking, a lot of them have it embedded in them like, hey, the harder that I work, the more that I make, you know?
Yeah, I totally feel the same way. I grew up in restaurants, meaning working at a bunch of local restaurants. So
I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah, I worked down over in Kierland for those Scottsdale natives at North for when I was 16 years old for a few years.
Really? My first salon was in that complex, and I used to eat at North all the time.
Yeah, I probably saw you. So it was a great job. I did almost everything there. I cooked when half the line cooks got deported and they needed some help. I was friends with the sous chef. So I had a great time there. But to your point, I will always choose somebody with restaurant experience over anybody else because it teaches you so much about customer service. And just dealing with a lot of shit. So
Right.
if you can do that, especially in Scottsdale, then you can pretty much do anything. One question I have right off the bat, for the listeners, while Brent is hacking away at my hair right now, I almost never tell you what I'm looking for, maybe at the beginning, so it's probably that you remember. How often does that happen? Is it mostly with repeat customers or clients? What's the beginning stages of a haircut usually?
So anything, whether it's cut or color, consultation is really important.
Yeah.
So when you get a new client, especially, you want to make sure you guys are both on the same page. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah.
And so I always tell even my staff, like, it's really important. Like 9 times out of 10, if something goes wrong in the service, there's something went wrong in the consultation. And I just say that that's our job to make sure that we're on the same page and understanding what they want. Because, if somebody's, an IT guy or something like that, they don't know what certain terminology means, in our world. So we have to make sure that we're, understanding exactly what it is they want, like, especially with color, like if blonde specifically, they either hate ash and like more gold or whatever, but gold is a warm tone.
Yeah.
So sometimes people want like almost like silver hair, and they'll come in and say, yeah, I want warm. And they'll show a picture of silver hair. You know what I mean?
Is silver in? Should I go silver today?
It is right now. But to your point, what happens, more times than not is stylists will just take the client's word and assume that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not the case. So yeah, consultation is really important. And then whether it's cutting, coloring, I save certain notes and formulas with every client. Mm-hmm. So that way when you come in, I know, hey, I do this number of a guard on your sides, and just little notes to help me stay consistent.
Yeah.
Especially with color too, that's really important. So I tell, that's another thing I tell newer stylists and stuff is that, anyone can do like a really good color once, maybe twice, but to keep a client for, years on end, it's consistency. And that's where you really sort out a lot of like the hairstylists that truly treat it as a career versus it's just a job. You know what I mean? So
rule number 1 for you kids at home in business: communication trumps almost everything in retention.
100%.
So with that question in mind, I imagine guys in general have a more difficult time telling you what they want or articulating that than girls.
It's funny. I think it depends your setting. We're in Scottsdale. It's a higher end salon. So our men clientele tend to be a little more particular than someone that just goes to Great Clips or a barber shop. I think the biggest thing with guys in general is that they don't understand what their hair is capable and not capable of. You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, we can only give you like what you got. So I'll have guys that come in with like really, really short hair, and they're like, hey, let's do something different. And I'm like, okay. Like,
you're going bald today?
So that happens a lot, with guys. But I joke about it, but like some of the most, like, for lack of a better term, prima donna clients that you'll ever find are guys.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not one of those.
Definitely not. But at the same time, when you said, because I know what we're doing, I always just ask, like, hey, are we changing anything today?
Yeah.
And so I always tell all my stylists, too, to do the same. Like, don't assume that we're just doing the same thing. I'll get a new assistant, and I save their color formula, and they'll be like, hey, you want me to just mix up real quick? And I'm like, well, no, we can't just assume we're going to do the same thing. And you don't want to be that stylist that, like, doesn't offer,
plays the hits, and
we're supposed to be on the edge of like fashion and stuff. So it's our job to say, hey, like, you want to try this today, maybe this, and whether they want to change or not, I think a lot of people appreciate just, like our input, and staying ahead of the times and stuff as far as trends go.
So every time I get my hair cut, I always continue to have the difficulty of visualizing what it looks like at the point of the haircut versus when I get home or a shower or something. Because I feel like, and you probably can communicate the science better than I can, but when your hair is wet or when you're getting your hair cut, it tends to look longer than when it dries, and I've had the experience of getting a haircut, and when I get home, it's way too short. Is really the thesis of what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
that's why, for us, like, we always try to style it for you.
Yeah.
Because that way, like I always say, dry doesn't lie. So if you wear it dry and you style it dry, especially with women's hair, I do a lot of my cutting dry.
Yeah.
And then that way there's no surprises.
Yeah.
But if we do mess up, then you see it right then and there. And
with a saying in the restaurant industry, going back to that, you can't recook an overcooked steak. You can send back a medium rare steak and have them cook it longer. But you can't reverse a medium well steak. So
yes,
it's a tricky.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah. So you were working for a salon. You decided at one point, hey, this seems easy enough. Let's go do it on my own. How did that come about?
That wasn't really the plan. I honestly never was that person that was like, oh, I'm going to have my own salon someday.
Mm-hmm.
That was never my thing. So I'd worked at a couple salons, and, they were great salons, really good salons. And then I had some buddies that were brothers that opened up just a little 5-chair spot. And their vision was really cool. And I had been friends, actually trained under them, and was really into what they were doing and whatnot. And so when they kind of told me, hey, we're building out our spot because we ride dirt bikes and snowboard together, I was like right away, like, yeah, let's do it, So I just kind of came on board and worked with them from the start. And as time went on, I just started recognizing things that I felt that would help the salon, and help them because they were my friends. So I just kind of stepped up and did a lot of things from a marketing level and just, stuff that owners would do just to help them, you know what I mean? And to make the salon better that we were working in, because it was a total team environment. And then, so yeah, I was there 7 years. It was an awesome 7 years.
Was that the place across the street?
Yeah. So then basically it just came to the point where there was a major ceiling on what I was doing. I had done such a good job of marketing myself and whatnot that I was making other people a lot of money with overflow and stuff. And it just got to the point where, I just needed more than what was, available for me over there. So there wasn't any hard feelings, nothing like that. I actually originally thought, hey, we'd get that place cranking, and once we outgrew it, we just get a bigger spot and do it together was kind of the plan. And then once we kind of got to that spot, they decided to kind of expand over there, and I just decided to, I needed to do my own thing. That was kind of the thing, and that's what I say. Really, what really, for you entrepreneurs and business owners, once you cut that cord for that, life supply as far as what's, guaranteed to you, that's what you really see. That's when you really see what you're made of. Once you're like, well, I'm in, I'm going for it, Yeah. It's always scary, as it should be. But at the same time, you really, really find out a lot about yourself, things that maybe you thought you never even were capable of, And so that's why I tell people, until you actually do it, there's no way to understand, only other business owners can understand all the struggles, with opening a business from the ground up. So.
Pause for clippers.
What's that?
I said pause for clippers.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, pause for clippers. I'm just going to line them up and probably carve my name in the back of his head here.
You weren't kidding about marketing, huh?
Yeah, right? I never knew you worked in a restaurant like that. No wonder you're such a good cook. For all of you that don't know, this guy could be an executive chef at the finest restaurants in town.
You're too kind. Yeah, I mean, that's really where I learned to cook, because I had to. I learned knife skills, I learned how to make different sauces and dressings and all the good stuff. But then I just played with it on my own after that. But yeah, so opening up a salon, what does that typically look like? Did you have any investors that helped you with the build out? Did you have money saved up? What does a build out like this cost? Give us an idea.
Oh man, it just depends on the situation. So, there's no such thing of a remodel or anything being done on time or under budget, right?
Right.
So that's to be expected. So when I went into it, this building was a dump. It was a salon originally, but it was like a total, I didn't use a single wire that was in here. So I actually hate that people are like, oh, what was it before? Because I say it could have been a tire shop. It wouldn't matter. We gutted everything.
Well, the logo made it seem like it was.
We had to redo the flooring. It was like a wooden floating floor. We did the concrete. We did the brick. Plumbing, HVAC, you name it. So with that said, my contractor had given me a timeline, and I immediately added a few months to it. And then I had a budget. I added a certain thing to that. But like a lot of things, it was like a contractor nightmare, unfortunately. And it was actually a client of mine. So
really? For
all you guys out there that are going to do like any type of remodeling, whether it's at home or for a business, like be really, really leery of that. Make sure you have a lawyer look over your contract and have something set up, because what happens to a lot of people is they're borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul. And even if you go to sue them, you can't. What are you going to get from somebody that doesn't have anything? Because they don't have any money, and they know that, and there's a lot of them out there that I've seen people get taken for like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's a really, really important part of any type of remodel or business.
So I assume he's still a great client of yours?
No, I haven't seen him. He unfortunately took a few other people for some stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. He's a really gifted guy, but just,
bad in business.
There's a thing when it comes to overpromising and underdelivering.
Yeah, you never want to do that. So how long roughly did it take?
So honestly, and it still sounds like, oh, that didn't take that long. It took about 8 months, but the building sat for like 3 months when they were supposed to be working on it.
And were you still cutting hair at the other salon?
I was still at my other place. And so basically what happened was got to a point where we were out of time and out of money, right? And, you asked about investors. Like I'm always like I live below my means type of person, I'm a less is more. So I always have a savings and stuff. But again, like I didn't plan on opening a salon. It just honestly kind of happened one day.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I'm doing it. And I didn't know what I was getting into as far as what a remodel would cost and stuff like that. And so fortunately I had a savings and stuff like that, which a lot of people don't. And so we got to a point where we were out of time and over budget. And I just luckily have a lot of really good family and friends that just kind of came to my rescue, and we did the majority of the work like within a month. We just had a lot of hands on deck, a lot of people that were really talented. One of my really good friends he's a welder. He's become a really good welder. At the time, He was just kind of starting out, and he did all the welding.
Nice.
So that was like, I'll always be blessed for that. And that's what I tell people too, no matter how bad a situation might seem, something good always comes out of it. And that was like, I'm a really stress-free kind of guy, and that was really stressful at the time. But at the same time, I had so many people in my corner that believed in me, and it made it like really worthwhile. My parents were huge. I was out of money, and they both the whole time were like, "Oh, if you need any money," and I'm like, "No, I'm good," because I was listening to my contractor, and come to find out, again, it was just a big scam. So at the very end of it, I had to borrow a little bit of money from my mom and my dad, and then a little bit from my brother. And so my goal was, after year one, and then I had some credit cards and stuff that I racked up, was to be completely in the green.
Yeah.
Was my goal, which is, new business owners aren't in that position. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool when I went to pay my parents back. Honestly, I don't even think they expected me to pay them back, to be honest with you. They were I think they were so happy to loan me money for something like that. And so when I came to them in a year, like, here, and they're like, no, what? Like, there's no way, you're paying me back so soon. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, and so, yeah, after that, I was, essentially in the green. But anyone that knows anything about owning a business, you're always putting money into it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people have a misconception now. Like when you open the doors, the money just comes in, and it takes a lot of money to make money. And that's aside from all the headache, all the risk, everything that comes with it. You know what I mean? So for anyone that does own a business that's taken that risk and everything, I mean, they deserve everything that they get from it. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of work. So,
are your parents entrepreneurs, or do you have other family members that were?
They aren't. They have always worked like in the health field, you know.
Gotcha.
So,
interesting.
yeah. I think honestly, just being in the restaurant industry, growing up, like even just as a busboy, like, hey, the harder I worked, the more money I would make, you know.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of my mindset.
So build out took 8 months. You got it all done, luckily, with some help. And then you opened up. And how did that go?
I was like, I got to a point where I was literally like, so much bad stuff had happened that I was like, cool, like, let's just get it all out of the way now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That had happened. And then I had a really good friend that was she was a former assistant of mine, a really, really good girl, and just kind of like my right-hand man, you know. And when I decided to do this, I was like, hey, if I do this, like, I can't do it without you. You know what I mean? Like, is this something you'd want to do? And she was like super into it, you know. And so she came over, and it was just us two. Like, I didn't take anyone from my salon when I left. You know what I mean? I didn't do anything. I left the way I would want someone to leave. And so we got in here, and within, I think, 3 weeks, I had hired a new assistant, which anyone that has seen me work, like the assistants, I can do almost double the work with an assistant, you know? They're a huge part of my business and stuff. My new assistant that had only been with me for like a month, I had trained and stuff, quit on me out of nowhere. And then my kind of right-hand person was diagnosed with cancer like 3 weeks in, and her family was all in Washington, so she had to move. And it was just me.
In such a big, beautiful space.
Yeah. So, you know, and again, I was just like, you know, as stuff like that kept happening, I was just like, well, let's get it all out of the way now. I was finding out things with the building that I thought was done.
Yeah.
That wasn't done, you know. But again, you know, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
Yeah.
I always said, like, I had a vision, you know what I mean? So I try to keep my expectations really low. So I knew that as long as I had X amount of people in here, then I was already in a way better position than I was before. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, I had a vision to where, like, hey, if I did it right, I could do it this way on a grand scheme of things, but I wasn't going to feel like a failure if I didn't get there, you know? So, you know, there's the saying, like, if you build it, they will come, but that's not always the case. Like, you know, you got to build it, and then you got to start doing certain things to make everything happen, you know?
So as a salon owner, was your priority more so to get clients for yourself or to hire hairstylists?
So it was more so to get stylists, because what I had done even in years prior was I would train assistants, and then a lot of my clientele, because I've been at a point for a long time where I've had more clients than I have time for.
Yeah.
So I was just always giving my overflow to other people. So when you have a salon, you know, most salons are commission based, you know, so you're kind of in business together with your stylist. The more money they make, the more money the salon makes. And so that was my goal, and that was my thing too. That's why I was really grateful for the opportunity that I had. Where I was before was that I got to do a lot of things kind of like a trial, like a test run, even though like at the time I didn't know that's what it was about. It was, you know, it was just kind of like a no-risk scenario, but as I started doing it and doing certain networking things and whatnot, I realized I had a knack for some stuff, so I kind of just felt deep down like if I could do it before, then I could do it again, but I could do it 10 times better, 10 times faster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really believe that. It was a little slow going at first. I thought I was going to be able to get it going a little faster, but that's, you know, nothing like... we're own worst critics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have people say that came in here one time and it was just you and my next appointment, it was packed. You know what I mean? But for me, it felt like it took
Forever.
too long.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty common.
So break that down for me. How does a typical salon work in terms of the revenue that's brought in?
It all depends. It depends on the owner, to be honest with you. We are done with your haircut too. So.
Okay.
But it really depends on what they're trying to do. A lot of salon owners were hairstylists or former hairstylists or are hairstylists, and they're not business people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, what that said is they just think, hey, I'll open a salon and I'll just rent out some chairs and I'll make a lot of money. And then they realize, wow, people think like, oh, when you open a salon, it's just rent. There's so much more. I mean, just like product bills alone, hair color is expensive. So I think a lot of salon owners, they do that. And then as the good ones or the smart ones, as they evolve, they realize, wow, money's where the commission is. You know what I mean? And so that's where you can make a lot more money if you have all commission stylists. But the problem with that is, one, you have to have something to offer commission stylists. You have to be able to build their books for them, or at least contribute to that, because no one wants to work at a slow salon. And then at the same time, you have to keep people happy. You don't own employees, you rent them. You know what I mean? And so kind of what I've done is a little bit more of a hybrid. You know what I mean? I bring on people and I just help mentor them. You know what I mean? I think everyone has stuff that they can work on. So all I try to do is just kind of take them under my wing and just guide them to show them a path to be as successful as they want to be. And so what happens is when I try to naturally hire like people that I think are leaders, and so when you hire leaders, they're not gonna want to work for people forever. You know what I mean? And I think in our industry, it's like a 2 to 4 year thing for people that stay at salons. You know what I mean? What I try to do is I would rather just make less money off people than have the headache. So like if I have a really good employee, like I don't want to lose them just based on money.
Yeah.
So as they kind of put in their time with me and stuff, and we set goals for them, then when the time comes, I allow them to kind of rent a chair. And then part of that is I try to offer things that I wish were offered to me, to where I didn't feel like I had to go open my own salon, And if anybody at that point, and I've had some people do that, if they want to go do their own thing, I fully support it. You want people to spread their wings. I just hope that hopefully one day they look back and say, hey, that was a really cool like stepping stone on the path of my career, and he helped me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in our industry, it's so like just pathetic that like if somebody leaves, you think it's just like it's sour on both ends, and it doesn't have to be like that. Like, and that's the same like with your stylist. As long as they leave and they don't burn any bridges or anything, then hey, it's business. It's not personal.
Supportive.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so I just try to go that route as far as like, getting them built up and then keeping them as long as possible, even though financially I can make more money.
So finances. You're starting to talk about how you're doing a hybrid approach where maybe it's not fully commissioned, but once they've proven themselves, they can rent a chair.
Once they've kind of built up, because at that point it's kind of like, well, they're either going to leave and go somewhere else to make more money, which we all want to do, or hopefully I can offer them more to keep them, and keep the right people. So when you ask as far as like finances go for a salon, it's completely varies. A lot of people think, and it all depends on your market too.
Yeah.
So like a salon in Scottsdale would be totally different than maybe a salon in Podunk, Oklahoma, or something like that. But a lot of people
salons in Podunk.
I don't know. I'm just
Have you seen their haircuts?
Yeah. So a lot of people think that don't know the business, like, oh, do you have all your chairs rented? If you have all your chairs rented, you must be making a ton of money. You know what I mean? So let's just do an average. Like Scottsdale's a little higher, but let's just say, let's take the market, for the country or whatever. Let's just say a chair is $250 a week. let's divide that by, there's 4 weeks. You're making maybe 1,000 off your renters, but all that, there's so much overhead that comes to it. Now that's great if as a salon owner, like you're not doing anything marketing wise, but if you do have a good marketing team, which I have an amazing team, and you're really good at bringing in business, what I kind of do with my stylists is I set a goal for them. Again, everything is different as far as price points, but let's just say like on average, again, I'm just kind of throwing some numbers. If an average cut and color is, let's say, $200, you know what I mean? Each stylist should be able to do, a certain amount of clients in a day. So a lot of hairstylists work longer days. So a lot of us will work 4 days a week, and we'll do a little bit longer days, like 9-10 hour days. Mm-hmm. So, I try to set a goal for them. Again, like I'm just throwing rough numbers. These aren't my numbers. But if an average cut or color is 200, per client, and you can do 3 or 4 of those in a day, you know what I mean? Then, it's really, really easy for your stylist to be bringing in anywhere from $700 a day to $1,000. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's in any given market. Again, Scottsdale's a little higher. So, for all you mathematicians out there, if you have a goal for your stylist, and let's just say like they should easily be doing like $800 of services a day, and they're on commission, let's just call it a 50-50 split. And one day, you're making basically more off a commission stylist in one day than you are a renter in a week.
Right.
And that's just like calling it like really low, like with people that are barely hitting their numbers, any entry level commission stylists. There's some really good ones that can do, 2 to 3 times what their goal is. You know what I mean? But again, part of that is being able to get people in the door, and that's where people really struggle. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite things is a lot of salons won't hire people that move from out of state because they want them to have a clientele. Mm. So my thing is I love hiring people from out of state because they have the skills. Like most of them have been doing hair long enough to where like, sure, can we teach them a few things? Yeah, absolutely. But they're in a new spot and they're hungry. They're ready to build their clientele. So they have the skill, they have the talent, and they have the drive and the work ethic, but they just don't have the clientele.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so that's where people really miss the boat, Mm-hmm. Because if you know how to get people in the door, then like most salon owners won't be doing renters at all. And you see that. But
when you said you did a hybrid approach, do you mean you do some rent and some commission?
So what I do is I don't bring outside renters in. Okay. Because what happens, I've worked in enough salons. I've been one of those people where they come in and they're like, I rent my chair, and they have a me mentality. We call it renter's mentality. And a lot of renters, they just kind of like, they're all for themselves and they're not a team player. And like, at least in here, I try to build a team environment. Mm-hmm. So that's why like my renters I have now, they've already bought into the system. And so when they go rent, there are some stipulations, because basically it's like, yeah, they get to make way more money and I offer them way more than what any other renter gets offered, as far as I know, from what I know is out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like they already are of the mindset of, how we work together as a team. So in essence, like the only thing that really changes is, they get more freedom, they get more flexibility, and they make a lot more money, but everything else stays the same as far as the dynamic of the salon.
So let's just use a good hairstylist as an mm-hmm. example.
Yeah.
Them coming in, when you have that discussion, you set goals. What would a good hairstylist expect to make, whether it's on a monthly basis or an annual basis?
Again, that's different because it depends where you're at. You know what I mean? So, like, I can confidently say this, and this is part of, like, what I call, like, a little bit of, like, a system that I developed. I didn't have somebody to say, hey, do this, and
just saw what worked.
Do this, follow this system, and within 2 to 3 years, like the world's your oyster. Yeah. Like whatever you want, within this industry, you can do. And so it took me like a decade plus to figure that out. And so when people come in, I just say, hey, like give me a few years, 2-3 years, whatever, and let's get you here. You do your part, I'll do mine, and then after that, hopefully I have more to offer you. But so like within my salon, I can openly tell people like, hey, if you're not bringing home at least six figures or close to it, like that's a you thing. Like, because I know that if I was in that position, I'd be doing well over six figures. And I'm talking like you could have just moved here from somewhere else, or you could have just like finished your apprenticeship, but that just comes down to work ethic.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's very easy to do that. So if people are falling short,
most things.
and I have it to where I set their goal up a certain way to where they should be right there. And like I just tell people, numbers don't lie. So when you break down numbers to people, especially hairstylists who aren't naturally business people a lot of the times, they're like, oh, wow, like I didn't even realize that. And of course, we're talking gross. You know. But yeah, I mean, it all depends, like it's on your market and your work ethic and everything like that. But like to simplify it, let's just say, like you asked on a salon owner, if you can potentially make $300 to $400 off a stylist in a day, that's commission. If you have 20 chairs, I don't have 20 chairs, and you've got 20 different stylists that are working, full time, which would be 5 days a week in a standard commission stylist or commission salon. Yeah. Then obviously do the math.
I don't do public math.
So yeah, is there a lot of money to be made within the industry? Yeah, and that's not counting product sales and stuff like that. So I guess the little bit of twist that I put on it is I've worked in all those salons that are just so, just corporate kind of structured, and with our industry, we like, for me, I got into it to be flexible and to kind of somewhat run my own show. So I tell everybody, like, I'm not here to be your babysitter. Everyone has a code to get in, and we all kind of try to stay committed to our schedule as much as possible, but we're flexible. But so like in my salon, I have more stylists than I do chairs. But again, we all work like 4 days a week. So, if we're only working 4 days a week, well, what happens with a lot of salons, if you have, 15 chairs and 15 renters, and they're all only working 4 days a week, and then they're coming and going whenever they want, you have a salon that looks half empty all the time.
Right.
And so that's something part of like, the dynamic that I've tried to create is like, I don't want the salon looking empty all the time, like, you know what I mean? Like there's stuff that happens. People have a lot going on a certain weekend. Holidays is always one of those things, but for the most part, you want to really, really keep your salon tight knit, because no one wants to go to a salon that's half empty all the time. Like, sure. To the point where here is if we're missing 2 or 3 people for some reason because people are out of town, people come in like, oh wow, it seems quiet in here today. Yeah. And that's just because a few people happen to be off. Like it's not because we didn't have clientele for them. It's just they, decide, happen to take this same day off. But in a normal salon to have 3 or 4 open chairs, that's just normal. But in here, our clients that have been coming for a long time, they're just used to it being busy all the time. But with that goes good energy, good vibes. And totally. I think, you see that when you come in, hopefully. Yeah. So.
And same idea, going back to the restaurant analogy. Yeah. If it's a busy restaurant, people will want to come.
And to that point, I tell people like, hey, like if you have like, people are like, well, why would you have more stylists than you have chairs, And it's the same thing, like empty chairs. Like if I had a restaurant and I had enough cooks in the back to produce food for all my tables out there, and I have people wanting to come in and eat, but I don't have enough servers to serve them at all the tables, you're going to hire more servers, right? Right. So it's kind of the same thing with the salon chair,
So just going back to the rough math, if let's say you had 10 stylists, they're great, they make 6 figures. In a commission structure, would that essentially mean the salon owner would make 7 figures?
Possibly. Yeah. Possibly. It depends on your overhead and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's certain salon owners out there that absolutely do that. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that comes with like, at that point, you're more of like a corporate based salon, which is cool. Everyone wants to make money, but my vision was like, I really wanted to like stay true to my vision and what I believe in. And so like, that's why with the hybrid thing, it's like, it's a mixture of both. Like we're all here to make money, but it's like, hey, let's get you up and going and whatever, put in your time. And like, hopefully I have more to offer you. And then when that day comes, like it's all good. I don't think like that, like, oh, I can make way more money this way, just because like I truly value like having the right people in your corner and
Sure.
stuff like that. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned something earlier about the marketing side. You have a good marketing team. Do you have an in-house person that does that, or do you use like an agency to
So I have a guy that's actually he's become a really good friend of mine.
Okay.
So I've, I'd say with everything too, like everything kind of has an effect, you know what I mean? So like, for example, like you could have hundreds of reviews on one thing, and what'll happen is people might go to your reviews, but then they want to pull up your Instagram, or your curb appeal is a big thing. We're in a really good location where people drive by it all the time. So people might drive by and go, oh, wow, that's a cool salon. Let me check that out. Well, if they type in, like, because they don't know the name or whatever, and if you don't come up, whatever search engine you're using, like, then they're just going to click on the first salon that they see, you know what I mean? And so it all goes hand in hand. But my buddy Thomas is his name. Like, he always says with everything, it's like, hey man, like I can get them in the door for you, and that's part of what gets it in the door. But you have to execute, and that's something that not all my clients do. Is like I get the phone to ring or whatever, but like they don't execute well or keep them coming back, and that's something that fortunately we've been able to do. But that's a huge part to my team, and that's why I say, like, not lightly at all. Like, I'm really blessed with that we have just a great group of girls and guys that I think they truly it shows that they love to be here. They love what they're doing. They love who they're working with and who they're working on. And then never underestimate the power of word of mouth either, right? Mm-hmm. So
that's for sure. So we see a bunch of products back here. How does that go into the revenue for?
So typically most salons, what you do is, just like anything, any retailer is, we get products that cost and then you double it. It's typically the case. And a lot of salons, they make a lot of money off product, and they're really hardcore
50% margins.
Product
you don't
pushers,
see that too often.
Again, that's kind of like I've seen places like that, and then you're almost like trying to sell people. I just tell my staff that good products sell itself. So use the products on them, educate them on what they do, recommend what you think would really help them, and people are going to buy them. I mean, because that's the thing. Most people want to buy product. They just, they like, if you buy a really nice shirt, a really expensive shirt, you're just not going to throw it in the wash with whatever laundry detergent. You're probably going to get it dry cleaned or whatever. So some of these women, they spend over $1,000 on their hair, if they're doing extensions and all that, they're going to want to take care of it.
Yeah. So if you were to break down a pie of the revenue coming in for the salon, where would products land? Percentage-wise.
Again, I wouldn't use my salon as an example, just because that's one thing, honestly, as an owner, I should probably
do
more of. But again, that was something that just always like left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
But for a typical salon, if you were really, really trying to like, and fortunately I've been blessed enough to where, we've been fortunate. We've done well to where like, but if you're a salon, like really like trying to like just pay your bills and stuff, and you need to do what you need to do to get by, I would say a product, could easily be, anywhere from 20 to 40% of your margin, if, depending on what products you have and what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. So. All right. So shifting gears, no pun intended. You're a dirt biker, and you started a business recently.
Yeah, man.
Touring the country, hopefully, giving people dirt bike tours. Tell us about
dirt
that.
Bike riding. So I've been, riding bikes for a long time now. So in my off time, I'm super outdoorsy like that. And so I do a lot of like trail riding. And so a lot of people think, oh, on a dirt bike, you're either like at a track or you're just out parked somewhere and you're tooling around on, by your truck. But we actually do like trail riding. So I call it's like mountain biking on steroids.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's really challenging. It's actually really, really exhausting on your body. So like people think because you got a motor and you're sitting down that it's easy, and it's anything from it. And so, I just kind of wanted to turn a hobby into something that could potentially, be profitable. It's something that I really, really love. As much as I love doing hair, I love the salon, all that. For now, I've kind of gotten to a point where I've done most of what I've wanted to do within the hair industry. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to do hair anymore. I'm going to sell the salon. Now I'm at a point where I want to keep that sustainable and then have some free time to do something like this, because typically I want to be out on the trails any chance I get anyways.
Right.
So kind of what really sparked my interest was I went down to Costa Rica years back, and I did a tour with them with a company called Costa Rica Unlimited. If you're on Instagram, follow them. It's awesome. So it's kind of their whole thing is you stay at an amazing property in the rainforest, looking down at the ocean, and then you ride out of their compound, and there's just tons of trails. You're riding through the jungle, across rivers. It's crazy. It's like the coolest riding ever, especially if you're not from like being in Arizona. Like we don't have anything near what a Costa Rican jungle has, you know? So you're out there and you're just getting your ass kicked because it's total different terrain. I go in the wet season, the rainy season, because it's harder and it's crazy. People are like, why are you doing it in the rainy season? But I like challenges. So anyways, after doing that, I've done a few tours with them now. But it's just, it's the experience as well. You know, it's not just going out and riding. It's the whole package. Like when you're staying at the property, it's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. And the owner, his name's Chris Kilbride, really cool guy. And, you know, they're just, it's with dirt biking, a lot like other sports and hobbies. It's like, you know, you're all kind of like-minded people. So you'll, you know, second you're out on trails with people, it's just like you're instant friends, you know what I mean? And so kind of like I've had that idea for a long time, like, man, that would be such a cool thing, like, because people come out to Arizona and it's like totally different from where they're at. And then I became buddies with my buddy Travis Constant a few years back. Really cool dude, great rider, one of the best riders I know, knows every trail like the back of his hand. And so he's got like this Facebook page with like thousands of followers. It's called Arizona Single Track Riders. And so what was happening was I already had this idea, like I wanted to launch this company. And then I became buddies with this guy, and all these people would get on his page and want to just learn trails. And Travis would ride dirt bikes 7 days a week if he could, you know?
Yeah.
So people would come out and he'd just take them on a normal ride, just instant buddies and stuff. And every time we'd get done, you know, people would be coming from Wisconsin and Canada, like all over. And they're like, dude, that was the best ride I've ever done. You know, and it's one of those things that like instantly popped in my mind is people just want different terrain. And what's cool about Arizona is like, yeah, we have the desert. Everyone knows that. But there's a lot of greenery, not only in the desert, but then we have like northern Arizona, which is an hour to 2 hours away. And you could be in pine trees, which is, you know, more similar to like something you would find in Colorado and stuff. So it's like just a really good place for riding, you know what I mean? And so once as Travis and I became better and better friends, and we started riding more, I kind of pitched the idea to him. And the thing about Travis is he's a really smart guy. He's not the most creative person though. So I kind of had the vision and the outline of the company. And once I could fill him in on what we're doing, he can execute things really well, but he's just not the creative one. But at the same time, he's, again, one of the best riders. He knows all the trails. His schedule's a lot more flexible than mine. So he'll actually be like the face of the company. And then he's also a certified mechanic too, which helps a lot with just, you know, breaking bikes and stuff like that. So,
I imagine.
I made him go down to Costa Rica with me last July because I needed.
Do you ever
him to
truly
see it.
make somebody go down to Costa Rica?
I kind of made him. He was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "No, you're going," because I needed him to see like what
How
it was
works.
about. I was like, it's more than just riding; it's the whole experience, and that's what we want to create for people here.
Yeah.
To where, you know, we pick them up from the airport. We've got a 12-passenger van. Hopefully, at the beginning of the fall, we'll have a house for people to stay at, and we'll just, we'll put them up, and we'll take them out on multiple tours. You know, we can do anywhere from 1 to 7 days if you want. And then most days we'll cook them lunch out there. We've got like a big old pop top and everything. And then when they're done riding, they just throw their clothes in a pile. We'll wash it for them and everything. So they just bring their own gear. We provide the bikes, or if they want to bring their bikes, depending on where they're at, they can do that too. And then, we'll usually cook them lunch because wherever we're at, it's like really prime weather.
Yeah.
And people are coming from other places, so they just want to soak it up. Like if you're coming from Wisconsin in February, like you want to be outside, you know. So usually, yeah, we'll just kind of do that, like cook them lunch out at the trailhead, or depending on where you're at or how many days they are, we'll take them to some bars, especially like some of the riding areas we're at. We have like old school, like Western style bars that people will never see, you know, that have like really good burgers and stuff. So they get a kick out of that, you know. And yeah, that's kind of it, you know. And then
so with that type of business, there's certainly liability associated. So for somebody like me that's ridden a dirt bike but hasn't ridden one in probably 15 years, I'm probably not your
not
prime
our
clientele.
market. So the company is called Arizona Dirt Bike Tours, by the way. So so we're only going to cater towards intermediate to advanced riders. We don't work with beginners. There's, you know, actually another company out that will teach people that, but it's just not something we'd want to do. We don't. That's not where our passion is. You know, this is both a second business for both of us, so we want to have fun with it. You know what I mean? But as far as insurance and stuff goes, you know, for the most part, you know, you just need like the mother of all waivers. You need insurance. There's certain things that come into mind, but basically it's like, hey, when you're on the bike, like you're whatever happens,
it's on you.
It's on you, you know, and pretty much all dirt bike riders know that. But what I've found with just certain companies like this, it's usually if something goes wrong, it's usually not the person that got hurt, it's like their spouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it only takes one person. So yeah, you obviously have to like dot your I's and cross your T's as far as all that goes. And just hope and pray that like, you know, stuff doesn't, because you can be insured to the max, but like you never know. It just takes one crazy or just somebody that you know, people will sue for anything.
Yeah, I do know.
So I guess time will tell with that, you know.
So what would that cost somebody to come out and do it for like a few days?
So if you tour for a day is like $400 for the tour, and then if you need a bike, the bike's $300 for the day.
Okay.
And then if you have your own bike, obviously
save on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say roughly, you know, $400 to $700 depending on what you need. But that, you know, we're still like working with numbers and stuff. So then, you know, once we have the house and stuff, we'll have to factor that in. So like a lot of the companies, you know, it ends up being like, you know, anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a day. But, you know, that usually includes your lodging, your meals, you know, transportation and all that.
All right. So I thought you might be able to leave us. You told me a story, I think the last time I was here, about an experience you had with a buddy out in the desert dirt biking. So I wanted to see if you wanted to rehash that, because I thought it was a great story.
Yeah, so I was out with actually my buddy that I used to work with, my other salon, and there was two of them that they're brothers that we used to ride together all the time. Well, one of their brothers, his bike was broken. So it was just me and the one, and we went on a trail we had been on tons of times. It's one of the hardest trails in the state. Like, you can't take most people there. But what's really cool about it is you're up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, and there's this old cabin. It's like a mining cabin. There's no doors, no windows. And so usually we'll ride up and we'll have lunch, and then we'll come back down. And we were a couple days before Christmas, so there's like snow on the ground because you're riding from desert up into pines. That's kind of another cool thing about Arizona. The terrain just changes depending on elevation. But anyways, the guy that told me about the trail initially had told me, I had asked him about this trail that kind of went away from the cabin. He goes, yeah, you know, I'm going to link that one up to this old like Jeep road that's a very popular road. So I had asked him about that like over a year prior, and he's like, yeah, I just need a couple more rains and it'll be done. So I'm like, cool. So it was like a year later. So me and my buddy were, you know, at the cabin having lunch, you know, having a sandwich. We're like, you want to try that new trail? It should be done by now. And he's like, yeah. So it was probably about 2:00. So we take this trail and we're going away from where our trucks are. And we get like 2 hours in and we realize that it is just a dead stop. Like there's no more trail. And it was like one of the hardest trails I'd ever ridden. And so now we had to go back and do it the other way. And so by the time we got back, it was like the sun was just almost going down. And the problem is we actually weren't that far from our trucks, but we had to drop thousands and thousands of feet in elevation really fast. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to do when you can see. And I could barely see. I mean, the sun just had barely enough light, and it takes about 45 minutes to get down. So we, at that time, just decided, hey, like, let's just stay here. At least if we stay here, we know we'll be fine, you know? So we ended up hiking around for as long as we could until our phones died, trying to get one signal to let people know, like, hey, we're okay. We just have to sleep out here. We ran out of daylight. We couldn't get any signal. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. So basically, about midnight rolls around, and we hear a helicopter coming up the canyon, and we had a feeling that something like that would happen. So we actually left our bikes out in the middle of this pasture, kind of like created a half of an X so they could see them. And then we figured if they needed to land, that would be a good place for them to land. So the craziest part about this is they circled us, and we were out there, and we let them know we were okay. You know, they didn't land. And so we're like, okay, cool. At least it's only midnight. Like, our family's not going to be super worried all night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we like go back in the cabin. We try to go sleep because we got to work the next day. It's 2 days before Christmas. It's like the busiest time of year. And next thing you know, like 3 a.m, the helicopter comes back up the canyon. It's a different helicopter. And they circle and they land, and then they get out and they're like, are you Brent? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay. So they had a full-blown search and rescue set up at our truck. The helicopter that came by earlier, they were in a different one. And I always thought these helicopters had this crazy, like, infrared, whatever. We had a huge fire going. They couldn't see us. Like, I don't even know why they wasted their time and gas trying to look for us in the other helicopter. So basically, our family was out, you know, in the freezing cold, in the middle of the night, thinking the worst. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so then what was funny was they were like, okay, we'll hop in. And we were like, well, no, because one, I know how expensive those helicopter rides can be. And two, like, then I would have had to hike back to get my bike, which would have taken forever. So we told them, no thanks, but no thanks. Like, we're good. We just need some daylight. And so they're like, okay. So they went back, you know, radioed in and told our family we're okay and everything. And it was pretty funny because they actually told our family, like, hey, I know you guys are pissed, but they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Like, too many times we go on these calls and buddies split up, or they try to do whatever, and one falls off a cliff and stuff. He's like, they did what they were supposed to do. But yeah, that didn't go over too well with my girlfriend at the time, my buddy's wife. But yeah, and it was funny because our buddy, who was our other buddy's brother, who wasn't riding, he was the one that like kind of told him where we usually ride, and they didn't even know of that this cabin existed. They had to look it up in the Arizona history books and stuff. And these are people that go out and rescue people all the time. So that's how remote some of the locations are that we ride.
And tell us again the name of the company.
The Arizona Dirt Bike Tours.
And do you have an Instagram and all the
We
socials?
do have an Instagram. So yeah, we literally just launched a few weeks ago. So we're just trying to build it up. And hopefully we got a tour booked up in Idaho in a month and stuff like that. So it gets a little warm in Phoenix anyways, but there's a lot of great riding up in northern Arizona that we can do tours out of. But yeah, we're just our plan is just to try to get some momentum going and everything, and get tours booked for the fall. Once
that becomes a huge business, this podcast will probably be sponsored by Arizona Dirt Bike Tours.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
We'll have a nice, fun marriage with that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
As always, I've loved getting my hair cut by you. The past, for the listeners, a brief history. I met you through my now wife, because she was getting her hair cut with you before you even opened the salon. And so it's a big circle of life.
Absolutely. You got a good one, man.
I think so. She's the best. I don't think she'll listen to this, but I love you. All right, thanks, man.